Hi, Ron from Clarity. In this video, we're going to help teach you how to master your ongoing HIPAA compliance with these 5 training essentials. This is how to keep your staff up to date on HIPAA and what do they need to do. Let's dive right in. Number 1, recognize and report potential data breaches. We talked about in the last video auditing the access logs to see if there are any unusual login attempts. Make sure to teach them how to handle potential data breaches. There are on the hhs.gov site restrictions as to you have to report yourself, we talked about, but there are also timelines on that. On some data breaches, depending on the severity, they have to be within 60 days. Others have to be within the calendar year. Does your team know? If there's a data breach, do they know who they need to report to, how to report, and where to report? Number 2, using security best practices for authentication and passwords. Teach your employees how to create strong passwords, recognize phishing attempts, right? We all get those emails that they want us to click to fix something. Those are all phishing attempts to try to steal passwords. Make sure your team understands them, knows them, and your IT staff is trying to filter those out as best possible. Number 3, make sure that you're handling PHI through approved communication channels. Teach your team what is acceptable, how to transfer PHI data when another doctor's office comes and asks for records. How do you transfer those? Are you transferring them securely, following PHI guidelines? There are different guidelines for printed versus digital PHI records. Make sure you know the difference, what has to be done in handling them. You can't just pack up and email things between offices if you don't have HIPAA compliant email boxes. You might have a HIPAA compliant email box, but does the doctor or patient asking you to email them records have a secure mailbox? Most likely not. So you'll want to make sure to follow the guidelines when transferring that data. Number 4, apply minimal access principles for every department. This is the one, and I've mentioned this in so many videos, for the last 5 years running, most of all of the penalties assessed is for access to staff members that should not have access. And I keep giving the example that I break my arm, I go to the ER and I go down for an x-ray, and the x-ray technician has to have access to my record, at least a portion of my record, so they can upload the x-ray, read it, and tag their notes. But they should not be able to go to the other part where they can see my lab tests, my blood work, any diagnoses I have, or anything else. That's not within their purview of support. So there are supposed to be very granular access roles that only give access to the staff to the area of the patient records that are required for them to provide their service. One thing that happens quite often is you have people within your organization changing roles, getting promotions, changing jobs, and so their access changes. So a lot of times companies don't want to deal with that, so they just give everybody access to everything, and that is an absolute violation of HIPAA. And if you have a disgruntled employee, and that's where 90% of these, you get a disgruntled employee that gets fired or they leave, they turn around and they report your staff. There's an audit, you can't back up and support the audit, and that's where you get assessed. Make sure to document and apply those minimal access. That way you know nobody has access to any data other than what they need to do their job. And the final one, number 5, is documenting your compliance measures every time you update. This will get you in good practice. So if we go back and update the portal, if we update the server, if we update one of our forms, it'll give us an opportunity to go back and reevaluate, do a quick little audit, make sure any policy changes, that the new forms, the new fields, the new changes that we made are documented in our HIPAA policy. So quick review of the 5. Number 1, recognize and report potential data breaches. Number 2, using secure authentication and password policies. Number 3, handling of PHI data only through approved communication channels. Number 4, applying the minimal access principles for every department. And number 5, documenting compliance measures after each update. Well, that's it for this video. Thanks for watching. We'll catch you in the next one.